My name is Ashley Breland. I am currently living in Saskatoon. What do I want to share about myself? Well, there's like the boring stuff. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a sibling. I think over the last couple of years, what I've started to really understand about myself is, so when that question comes up, is I'm a disruptor. I am somebody who is an organizer. I always say that I'm a failure in lots of the best ways in terms of risk taking. So I always say those pieces. I'm somebody who believes in community. And the more that I dig into my Métis ancestry and really understand my ancestors and their contributions and the ways that they disrupted, I'm like, okay, yep, that is exactly who I am. And I'm learning to be really comfortable with that. I'm also a business owner. I'm a social worker. I've been a registered social worker in Saskatoon for 14 years. And so I've worked in various different fields. I've worked in primarily mental health and addictions, in counseling, but I've also done some work in corrections and public safety, working with folks. I've done some stuff in the private sector in terms of healthcare and psychological health and safety. I worked on campus for 5 years, and it's been 3 years actually in September, which I totally forgot about up until last week, that I've had my own private practice. And so that's based in Saskatoon, because you just don't remember these things until somebody asks me, how old is Breland Counseling? And I'm like, oh, I think we're 3 years old. And sure enough, you look at the paperwork. And so we just celebrated our 3-year anniversary last month. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
You know what I like about that, though? I like that you said that you were a mother and a wife and a daughter first.
Yeah.
That's like, I think most people say their job title first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
Uh,
think I remember hearing, like, I probably listened to something or I read something really challenged women in particular to think about the ways that they talk about themselves or how they define. And not to say that the way that I define myself is better or worse. It just is. And I really, I can't remember where I learned that from. And I love to say that I'm a daughter, and I love to say that I'm a mom and a wife. Those
and
are my everyday
disruptor.
pieces and a disruptor. So that will come to no surprise for folks that are listening that know me either in my professional life or my personal life. If my parents are listening, they'll be like, this is our kid.
So do you know your Métis background fairly well?
No.
No.
No, I'm one of those ones, that I think I'm learning more and more that folks like me in our adulthood, close to 40, it's only been the last probably 5 years, getting ready for today, I knew this was going to come up, and I'm like, what do I remember? I remember living in Saskatoon as a young person, and my dad's Métis card was in like the jewelry box. And I don't know if anybody was like, thought they were super badass. They would go into like their parents' bedroom and start looking through stuff. And I remember finding this card with his picture on it. It was like laminated. You could tell that it was in a wallet, but I didn't understand it. It wasn't something we talked about. I think just sort of overhearing conversations at the kitchen table growing up, a bit, but nothing, until, I went into university in my undergrad and started in 2003, and then sort of worked my way through, figured some pieces out there, but it really hasn't been, I would say, actually, since my son was born. So he just turned 7. So about 7 years, but really starting to invest in like the discovery of my lineage over the last probably 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Mm, that's wild, eh?
Yeah, it is wild when you think about it. So I always, when people ask me this question, or if I'm around community, I'm not part of the inside jokes, right? I don't understand the language. I don't understand sort of the humor in some of these pieces, and I'm learning to,
Right.
and so my good friend Brittany was on. You had interviewed her, and we always joke about some of these pieces. She's really helped me learn some of these inside jokes because I don't understand them. I've never been around them, and so there's been a lot of vulnerability that I've had to put in to like, okay, Ash, it's okay if you don't know this. A lot of my Métis friends also who are in the similar situations or have had a lifetime of exposure, always remind me these beautiful messages like, you belong. It's okay.
Right.
This is part of, colonization. This is a part of our history. And it's okay. you can be part of this and not know. So I'm trying to like balance both of them, not being part of it my whole life and being part of it now,
Yeah,
like the and the both. Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what have you been doing to learn?
Well, honestly, this is going to sound, but I jumped on ancestry.ca because I'm like, I don't know what I don't have no idea. Like, I have no access to family records or anything. And I mean, I have my whole thoughts and suspicions about ancestry, but that's for another time. But there is a lot of community. Like,
Just turns into a
put your DNA here.
conspiracy podcast.
Yeah, like, so we're gonna rein it in. But there is actually like a built-in community there that you start sort of putting some information in, you start linking things, and the my family tree just sort of exploded. And then a relative of my, so my métis ancestry is on my dad's side, and a cousin of his from Leoville. I started to get to know him after spending some time at the lake with them, and so he started to pass actually on some documentation to support what I was finding online, and just found like a beautiful, rich history of relatives in the Red River area, Simon Fraser area. I remember in university cracking open a textbook and seeing Pascal Breland, my last name, that I'm so proud of, and just being like, oh my gosh, there's a Breland in this book. What did he do? And, my family was like, yeah, actually, there's a Breland. It's like, I was just astounded. I was just like, this can't be real. And so digging back into that was like, wow, this person like really had a huge role in the resistance and connection to Lou Riel. And I'm like the third great niece of Pascal Breland. So if you Google it, that's my family, and I'm super proud. And yeah, I mean, I just over the last, I think it was it this summer or the summer before, when we were getting ready for Batoche, and I was explaining to my son about what Batoche was. And I happened to Google our name, and there was a picture of what the title was called was Batoche Elders, and there was four of my great grandparents on different sides of my family that were in the photo. And so I look forward to hopefully finding people that can tell me a little bit more about that picture. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
You do you go there every year now?
We do. We went last year. Was our first year. It was amazing.
Plus 100
It
every day
was,
last
I
year?
think it was 40 degrees the day that we went,
Yeah,
and we only lasted a couple of hours because I,
us
I
too.
remember a moment when my kid looked at me. He's like, Mom, I'm hot. I'm like, we're going to
Yeah.
go. So it was 2 hours. But this year, I think we spent, 5 or 6 hours, and really took in the fiddling competition, the jigging. We did some food pieces, went around, and we loved it. And all of a sudden we're like, hey, it's, 6 o'clock. It's time for us to go. We really, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
remember when I was young going, and it seemed so small
Yeah.
compared to now, how much it's grown and how many people are out there.
It's great.
It's massive.
Yeah, it was yeah, the number totals are sort of mind-boggling, and it's really cool to be a part of that. To
Yeah.
to say that you were there and to learn, and now that I have sort of that picture of my ancestors there, I have a different association with the land there that I can,
Mm,
I'm excited to dig into and pass on to my kiddo.
that's cool.
Yeah, something I didn't have, so yeah.
And do you go to powwows?
I did growing up. Yep. So, yeah, in my hometown, we had some powwows around. So I would tag along with a friend. My husband's from the Fort Capel area, and so Standing Buffalo down there always put a beautiful powwow on for August long weekend, and so we went to a few of those. And last year, took my kiddo for the first time to the Every Child Matters powwow here in Saskatoon for September 30th, and he was just overwhelmed with the regalia, with the colors, with the drumming. They had the Mara people there from New Zealand. Just watch Grand Entry was really special, and to
Yeah,
explain to him what was going on. Yeah, I was proud. 6 years old, and he managed to stay there for 3 hours before he was, starting to say, "Hey, Mom, it's time to go." So yeah, that was
that's
really
cool.
really special. Yeah,
It is like a lot. It's like it's just so different
than anything,
than anything.
than anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's hard to put language into it. I think that's
Right.
probably the purpose too, is that there's more of a feeling there.
Mhm.
And so when the drumming is going and yeah.
Even I w where was it? I was out at not Pound Maker. Maybe it was Pound Maker. But one of my boxers, she dances,
Okay.
and her sister was there, and we were just standing and watching, and she was just explaining to me, like, the meaning behind each dance
Mm-hmm.
and, like, why they dance like that, what
Yeah.
they're doing, and it was really cool
Yeah.
because I've
Intention.
been to so many powwows, but never really had it broken down for me,
Yeah.
and I thought that was, like, a really cool moment this summer to just, like, hear her, like, explain to me what everything means, why they do
Yeah.
that, why they're, doing the different movements they're
Mm-hmm.
doing in each dance. Uh, and I was like, "Man, that's so cool."
Yeah. I think what I love learning about anything Indigenous related is just the intention behind
Mhm.
everything. Um, and I think that gives just such different purpose and meaning to the things that we're
Yeah.
witnessing. Yeah. That's
So what
awesome. Yeah.
what made you get into counseling
Into
and social
counseling.
work?
Oh man. Okay. This is a funny story. Um, I did a 4-year undergraduate degree in psychology and was like, I do not want to go further into
Mhm.
psychology. And I didn't know what to do. So I, took a hiatus from post secondary, worked at a bank for a while until a friend, got into the social work program here in Saskatoon. Well, it's through U of R, but the satellite campus here in Saskatoon was like, hey, Ash, this is something I'm doing. Looked into the program and I'm like, at that point, it was just a career, right? Like it was just something to take my psych degree to do something to actually work in a professional career. It turned into something obviously almost 15 years later
Right.
that is hard to put into words, but it started off as just an ends to a
Mhm.
means. And then through, doing my undergraduate degree, working with my BSW for why 12 years until I got into my graduate degree program at the University of Regina. Then things really took off. But I think the social work program in itself really lended it to a lot of changes in my life. It really challenged a lot of values that I grew up in. Small town Saskatchewan, very conservative farming community that I spent a lot of my high school years in. My parents continued to reside there. And so lots of prejudice, discrimination, lots of internalized racist pieces that were really challenged in my social work degree um, forever changed me. And then further getting into graduate school really provided like a very beautiful time to continue to challenge, to be a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more gray in some of the pieces, to really understand how I wanted to show up as a social worker, how I wanted to be different as a social worker. I mean, it's no secret our profession is really grounded in a lot of violence, a lot of racism, right? A lot of collaboration with law enforcement, government, church. And so those pieces are things that are very dark parts of our history. And because there's always the and side, I am proud to be a social worker. I'm proud to see where some of the work is shifting and changing, where we're starting to really have conversations in language that are different than even when I started the program in 2009. So I am a very proud social worker, but it doesn't come without recognizing where our roots come from.
Right.
Um, I wanted to help people. I think I had this idea when I went in is like, I'm going to save the world. I'm going to have all these beautiful ideas. Yeah. And then most people, because I give this look now, were like, yeah, Ashley, good luck. And then I'm like, what are you talking about? I got all the answers here, right? I'm the expert. I have a degree.
Yeah.
Listen to me. And then the world teaches you, experiences, people, stories ground you and they humble you. And if it wasn't for the stories that I have been able to sit across from, alongside over a career already, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And so, now, my definition of being a social worker is quite different. The world really humbles you in terms of, kind of that white saviorism of just going in and I know what the world needs and I'm going to do it. And I'm proud to shift away from that and sort of define things a little bit different.
Right.
in the work that I do because I'm in private practice counseling, um, and I have a group practice, and so we talk a lot about sort of our roots, how we want to show up, how the mental health field in itself is also has a very dark past and continues to disenfranchise who is allowed to have access to therapy and who isn't. All of these pieces, so it's a conversation we have a lot in our space, and it's just a beautiful moment every time somebody decides that they're going to trust us and show up and share space with us, and most importantly, share story every
Mm.
day. Yeah.
I always, just from like an outsider looking in who really doesn't know anything about it, I always look at social work. I always thought like that must be like a very and like unfulfilling job.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
just because like from what I know and what I see, like having to give kids maybe back to situations that aren't great or, you know, all this stuff and just like you fight for something and then you
Mhm.
lose it. And then I'm just like always thinking, man, that must be a really tough and unfulfilling job,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and it's interesting because that you say that too is because a lot of our social work values, really go up against the systems that we're working in. And so it's a really tricky space to find oneself in. I can't speak to that experience. I never worked in, traditional child protection or child welfare. But I have had lots of conversations with social workers, either as participants, so clients, but we call them participants who come in, who talk about moral injury. In that is just there's such a clash between um, what we are registered to believe in, our values, our standards of practice, and how we show up, and how that legitimately every day goes against the systems that we're working in, whether it's through government or healthcare, and so that moral injury comes up as a topic quite a bit. Yeah.
Mm. So are you now mainly counseling?
Yes. Yeah.
And how do you like that?
It's it's a beautiful beauty comes in all forms. So there are days that are harder, when stories come in, or I've been doing this for so long too, is that I've recognized that stories will come in themes, depending. And so there might be a heavier day with loss or trauma or tragedy, or we might have, folks that are, vulnerable enough to share that they're having any suicide ideation, or they come in themes. And so, the work I do and are privileged. I'm very privileged to be able to do, um, is can be heavy on a lot of the days, but I think the ways that I have learned to practice have really helped to soften some of those stories. So really, like decentering myself as the expert, decentering myself as the person that needs to this idea that people need to be fixed. I think as a young social worker, that led me into a lot of like tricky spaces with folks that would come in, and that would lead one to burnout a lot. But now I'm practicing in a way that really decenters myself from that. So I find that might, I'm hoping we'll be able to sustain the work for a very long career. Um, but there are days that are harder,
Yeah.
specifically if you can locate yourself in some of the stories, or if there is feelings or experiences that are similar, going home as that being activated can be hard. So for me, it's grief. Those are the days that I find, a
Okay.
little harder. I am very, um, I love working with grief, as odd that might sound. I feel very comfortable working with grief. I work with a lot of like perinatal loss families, um, and disenfranchised grief and death loss. But yeah, grief is something I love to work in, but it's something that also activates a lot of um, my own stories. So those can be difficult. Yeah,
So
yeah.
what do you do when maybe you are having a tougher day or maybe a tougher week even?
Hmm.
How do you still show up for somebody else?
Yeah. What comes to mind as you say that is, so when I talk about grief, I always, I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of therapy in my sense. I've been around young tragic grief since I was 15. So I've buried a lot of friends, you know, one of them being a best friend who it'll be 10 years next year since she died. And so I'm very comfortable talking about that. So I think that is helpful. So when folks come in, it's not that I'm like dumping my baggage onto them, but really that soft self disclosure around, you know, that grief is, I'm very familiar with it. I talk about grief as being a friend that I never asked for.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't consent to this friendship, but here we are, and it's not going away. So in those tougher days, I find that even looking at a picture of Lindsay, so that's my one of my best friends. So she, like I said, 10 years she'll be. She would have died next June, and so looking at a picture of her is always something that brings my heart some softness. Sometimes just sitting outside, you know, being on the land, being on, as a young kids say, is like touch grass, is getting outside. I have a folder in my phone that I've had since Lindsay passed away of videos and funny moments that my kid has done, and so sometimes I'll just bring those up and I'll just laugh at that, as I find that can be really hard. And some days none of that works, and some days it's just tears. You know, some days that's like, I don't feel like cooking. I'm just, it's having one of those days. And so
Right.
my husband will, you know, will pick up the slack or we'll order in. It's just about the softness of the day. So sometimes those things that, you know, those things that I've tried won't work. And I just know that that's like a deep grief day. And,
Mm,
and that's okay.
yeah.
And that's okay. Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool that you have like these tools you've picked up along the
Mm.
way to help you.
Yeah. I decided that I needed to, because, you know, having 6 friends that you have before you're 40 is not something, it's not a club that most people are able to relate to or be in, and I would never wish that upon anybody.
Right.
So I learned a long time ago, you know, that I'm thinking, okay, well, this is, you know, the third or fourth friend now that I've been to funerals for and had to, I was like, I'm going to have to figure out how to be with grief. You know, I have to figure out how my life is going to work because this is not ending. And so it can be, yeah, it can be really difficult. And grief has been the biggest teacher of my life too. So,
Right.
but the teacher, I always say the teacher I never wanted these lessons. I never, you know, like I always think about sort of some of that toxic positivity that surround, you know, grief is, you know, it's, you know, you're better for it, or you've learned so much from this. And it's like, yeah, sure. And I never asked for any of this. So I always try to make space for both whenever I'm talking with people or engaging in conversation over grief. It's like, it can be both.
But I think at the same time you should be like I think you should be very proud of yourself to be able to like you carry that, but you've built yourself up to be able to
Hmm.
carry that and now help other people when I think most people would have maybe fallen apart,
Yeah.
you know?
And there have been moments when I fell apart. There were deep moments, you know, that falling apart was part of that journey. And I I had the right people around me to not try to fix it, but just hold me. My husband
Mhm.
being, you know, one of them, and a couple other of my really good friends. Um, and I finding meaning in grief and death too is something that I think has been helpful in sort of finding some resiliency through, is finding meaning.
Right.
Um, One of the dreams that Lindsay and I had, she was a physiotherapist, was to open up our own space. And so everything I have done since the second I decided that I wanted to do Breland counseling, she's always been there, inspiring, helping me, you know, those moments of like, ooh, should I not? Like, I always think like, Lens, what would we say? What would we talk about? Right. So, you know, that relationship continues on just in a different form. And that's why I find meaning in it. And on those deep grief days, those are what can hold me through that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you before I forget, because you mentioned going to school, psychology you took,
Yeah, I have an undergraduate degree in psychology too.
and you
Yeah.
did not like it.
No.
Because so like one of my favorite things is like people. I love people. I love like figuring out why they would do things they do,
Yeah.
why they think the way they think. So if I ever went back to school, it would be just for fun,
Yeah.
and I would want to take psychology.
Yeah.
Um, So how do you go from not liking the schooling to doing it as a career?
Well, I don't think I had a language back then as to why I didn't like, psychology, and that's not to say that other people can't love it, and we need people that love it. For me, I think my heart has always been in social work, and so we have a different framework. We have a different sort of way that we view the world, or frameworks around how we understand people, how we understand how people do things, how they come about things, how they respond to things, and so it makes sense now, all of these years later, why me and psychology just would never have meshed. Um,
Mm.
I didn't have a language back there for that. I had no, I just didn't, it just didn't feel right for me. It just didn't feel right. So
Do
it
you have
was
an example?
probably like um, putting the person as a problem all the time, like blaming the person for the problem all the time, like the centering of the problem within the person. Like traditional psychotherapy and pieces would really center that. And so that I remember always in whatever class I was taking, it just felt weird to me. I just didn't understand, when we talk about pieces now as a social worker, we talk about people and environment, we talk about systems, we talk about those experiences through active oppression, active marginalization that lends itself to people's experiences and how they respond and how they're able to show up in this world. So that always just didn't jive for me. And I'm not slamming psychology,
Yeah,
totally. But,
yeah.
it just didn't feel right for me. And I've always been somebody that I've always led with how I felt. It didn't mean I always had a language, but it just didn't jive. Something didn't. And then, I found social work and I started learning, like, oh, well, this fits. This feels different.
Mm,
This feels right. And, I carried that through my undergraduate and then my career for 12 years before I decided to go back and do my master's degree. And then further just kind of exploded in that like decentering the problem out of somebody else and looking at the environment and the systems around for
right.
people. So,
Yeah, it's interesting to, as I have like just started like kind of going down the rabbit holes and like listening to different people speak on it, how wild like childhood trauma actually is and how much it actually shapes who you are as an adult without you even knowing.
without us even knowing.
And it doesn't even have to be like extreme
No,
trauma. It can just be like little things. You could have had the best parents
sure.
and just like their parenting style
Yeah.
just created one thing in you
Yeah.
that was like not even intentional.
Hmm.
And it's so wild because it,
Yeah.
it makes me like always think about why I'm the way I am. But like my self-awareness sucks. I cannot, I don't know what's like, I cannot, I feel like anything happening around me, I could be like, "Oh, yeah, that's why they're doing this because of this,"
Yeah.
like, that makes sense. But when it comes to me, myself, I'm just like, "I don't know. Just move on. Just let's put up another
Put
wall
a
and keep going." I don't know, but
Yeah, I think when people come in to counseling now, it's so interesting to me, and I kind of giggle about it now. Um, is that you can come in for anything, and we can probably find a part that there is a hurt, unheard, unacknowledged,
mm,
traumatized little person
right.
that is inside of us that all of us carry.
Mm.
Um, and then sometimes I get people that I've been working with for a long time, and they'll just like look at me with these eyes and just give me this roll of like, Ashley, are we going back to this? This particular moment. I'm like, "Mhm, we are." They're like, "Damn it!" Again, I'm like, right.
Yeah.
And so through this relationship that you build with people, it really is that those moments as a child are pivotal in the ways that our nervous system develops, the ways that our response mechanisms and our adaptations, our coping, our self-soothing, it all those parts are generated
Mhm.
from those very early influential times from the people around us, our caregivers. Yeah. And I saw this post the other day, and it was talking about how relationship problems, like in between couples, aren't usually what's happening in the present. It's like a lot of childhood shit that's coming in adult bodies. And it just
Right.
sort of made me stop and think and go, this reinforcement of, right. Typically, we're not having discourses in our or discord in our relationships because of the present pieces, there's always a component of something earlier on that's creating this discord in our relationships as adults. We're just like moonlighting this because we're just like adults and supposed to have our shit together. It's, it's like, no, we actually don't.
Right.
We're all just like unhealed little people in adult
Yeah.
bodies. Yeah. Go to therapy.
I remember like when you're a kid and you like look at adults and you're like, oh, they're so old and they know everything.
Right?
And now
Yeah.
you're there and it's like,
I don't
I still don't know anything.
I don't know a thing.
I'm still a kid.
Yeah.
I'm still a kid.
Yeah.
Just guessing
Yes.
at
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Taking some information, making a choice, and then
One of those.
okay, let's see how this rolls.
That's so funny. Do you know who Dr. K is?
I don't think so.
This guy I've just been like obsessed with him
Okay.
like the last 2-3 months. And he was a monk
Okay.
for like 6-7 years. And then he left. And then he became a psychiatrist. And now he helps people, but like from kind of a spiritual
Ooh,
look
okay.
at it.
Lovely.
It's and like the way he talks about things is so amazing. Like how he says it. And one thing he was talking about was like trauma. He said like if you had a glass of water and then you peed in there.
Okay, I'm already invested.
Yeah. And then he said like and then you put like juice in there and like no matter how much good you put in there now,
It's still gonna
that pee is
taste like
still in
pee.
there. And it's like you actually have to remove it.
That's pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't matter if you become rich and successful and married and have the nicest family and you have the perfect setup and you got the perfect career, like that pee is still in
That
there.
pee's still there.
And it's gonna come back out in random moments, right? That little kid is gonna peek out in random situations unless you heal that, unless you remove that.
Yeah, filter out the pee.
And now I think about that all the time.
Well,
and
I'm never
like,
not going to think about that now.
I'm like, where's my pee? Like, where?
How much pee is in
And
there? How dark is it?
Yeah. Yeah. And so like I think about that often.
Yeah.
Like I don't even like if you had to give somebody like a quick answer of like where to begin when it comes to trauma, like what would you tell them to do?
What would I tell them to do?
Like
Well,
just go talk to somebody?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways that people can find support, if they're like, I want to deal with my trauma. Like there's the traditional professional ways to do that, finding a counselor. I think for people, it's finding the right counselor, right? And so it's really vetting practices that are out there and really understanding, what are their values, what are they, what is their mission, what are the people that they serve, how do they see the community around them, and I always encourage people to, if they're going the therapy counseling route, to book those 15-minute consults, those free consults. You can get a good sense, because there's no point of sort of reactivating some of that trauma if we can build some capacity before that. So looking at the websites, understanding the profiles, if you have a community or a village around you, and this comes up in conversation, asking, people are usually quite open to share, like, hey, this is who I see, or this is who I've seen, and this has been helpful, or group work or things like that, right? I think that there is a built-in trust from community and village if people are looking for that too. But it always doesn't have to be with traditional therapy, right? It can be finding community, culture, tradition, ceremony, land, right? All of those pieces can all contribute to holding, those traumatized parts of us, or finding a way to build up capacity or soothing to dive into some of that stuff. So it's a long journey. It's not something that can be, oftentimes look at people and it's like they look at their like 50 minutes, like we haven't solved the trauma yet, and I'm providing like I don't know if we got tripped up here, but I don't think I can solve things in 15 minutes with you, So
Uh,
but that's just, that's all another conversation that we have with folks. But it's, part of our things that we talk about with people too is that counseling or going into trauma at any point usually means that you're going to sit in really uncomfortable
right,
emotions, whether you're ready for it or not. And so building up capacity around you is really important. Community support, ceremony, tradition, culture, whatever that is for you is really important because those moments that you sit alongside those parts that have been traumatized or haven't been, acknowledged or talked about, it can be really sharp. And so it's important if you have available to do that. And not everybody does. And sometimes that's a process in itself. But if you do have access to that, creating that softness around, because digging into that trauma can be really, really sharp. And it can be unexpectedly sharp too
right.
when you get into stories.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like too, like, because I've never went to therapy or counseling, although I've like considered it a bunch of times, just because like I just want to understand myself better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but from people that have went and have not done the work,
Mm,
some of the things I hear is like, I'm just tired of talking about it.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, it's like, what is that balance of like someone coming there for you to solve it, and then for like you are trying to help them solve it
Mm,
themselves,
hmm. Yeah.
like guiding them.
Yeah.
So like, is there a balance? Like, do some people need it to be solved for them, and some people need to solve it themselves?
It's a good question.
you know?
That's a good question. Yeah. I mean, I can only answer sort of in my own frameworks in that I work, right? And I really believe in storytelling. I really believe in the power of understanding how we've come to understand ourselves in the context um, that we are brought up in, that we were exposed to. And so I also believe that, resistance in therapy isn't inherently a bad thing. It actually, there's a part there that's probably protecting, like the resistance is a form of protection. And so we will see that come in. Um, Maybe some of the old ways that I would have approached that would have been more like, I'm going to tell you that this is what you need to do. I've really learned in my professional development and kind of unlearning a lot of the things that I learned in school, is around like understanding that all of these parts have a meaning and a place in our stories. And so sometimes that resistance, sometimes that hesitation is there for a good reason. And it could actually do more harm or risk to the individual if we like force it open, or we really force the individual to say like, no, this is what you need to be doing. Right. So we really honor those parts of resistance. We talk about those parts of resistance. Um, we can expose those parts of resistance without necessarily getting into the trauma itself. But sometimes even understanding where this protection has come in can be a really beautiful sentiment for a person to think about this idea that maybe I have more empowerment, maybe I have more power than I thought. Maybe my body has its own intuition more than I even considered in that. And so really understanding those parts and weaving it inside of story. People come in all the time and they'll talk about um, um, all these things that I can't get this right, or I can't get this right, my relationships and all this stuff. And my job, truly what I believe my job is to listen for the ways that they have like alternative sort of storylines, because they're still here, right? They have relationships, or else they wouldn't be here in my office talking about them. So there is pieces that they have recognized. There is strengths and power and resilience that likely is embedded in all of these stories. But when we get really inundated, or really when the noise of the problems get really loud, it's hard to see that. And so that's where I see my work coming in so beautifully to just sort of slow things down, turn the noise down a bit, and then people start to understand in the ways that I ask questions. I ask a lot of weird questions for all good intention, and then people sit back and they're like, huh. Again, the best thing that as a counselor that you can hear is, I never thought about it that way.
Mhm.
Like, you just sit there, just like your heart's like, okay, we're on to something, right? It's like, oh, I never thought about it that way. And so if we're going to the theme of resistance and hesitation to therapy too, or, solving, there's a reason why that there is that that I'm not going to say barrier. No, that's not the right word. There's a reason why that hesitation is there. And so sometimes it's about tabling what we think that we need to get into, and we just honor the story that's in front. And there can be really great moments that are created from honoring things like resistance and hesitation. Yeah.
Mm, that's super
Yeah.
interesting.
Because they also still showed up. Like,
Right.
if you got somebody, in your office and they're talking about, I don't want to be here, or just like, hey, it's like, you still showed up. There's something in that story. So let's dig into that. Or it's like, I had an individual who shared with me the very first time they sat down, was like, actually, I hate therapy. I don't know why I'm here. And just so you know, I've had terrible experiences. Well, this person now is 2 years into the process, and we regularly joke, about just sort of bringing that up as a piece. And it's a reminder for me that I think the way that I decided to approach it in that time really fit for that individual. And here we are 2 years later, intermittently, seeing each other still in that professional capacity is pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's such like a like even what you were saying there about just kind of like sitting in the resistance a little
Mhm.
bit,
Mhm.
because I feel like a lot it'd be so hard. Like, there's probably a lot of people who are there who maybe didn't 100% make the decision to come there on
Sure.
their own.
Mhm.
Maybe a spouse or a
Mhm.
friend or a parent
Yep.
suggested it,
Mhm.
and they want to go there to prove to whoever suggested that they're fine,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So they're maybe uh, coming from a position that isn't even them,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's like who they want to be,
Mhm.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Or who this ideal that other people have of them versus who we are sitting in front of us too.
Right.
Right. And that can be an interesting conversation to have with people too, depending on their motivations to come in.
And I think, like, depending on your self-awareness, because when I like sometimes people I know even will say things, and in my head I'm thinking that's not you. Like, I know you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why are you telling that person that you're like that? Like, that's
Yeah.
not true.
Mhm.
And then it's like, do they know that's not true? And they're just trying to make themselves look better in the
Mm,
situation, which is happens all the time.
right.
Or are they so unaware that they think that's where they are?
Mhm. Mm,
And then it's like,
right.
how do you grow or get better or heal yourself if you actually think you're up here
Yeah.
when you're way down here?
Mhm. Yeah, those are interesting storylines, yeah, to get into. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
That's freaking tricky.
It is tricky. That's my favorite word, is it's tricky.
Yeah,
It's
it's
tricky.
tricky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's be honest, like, therapy and counseling hasn't been a safe space for a lot of people. We have a lot of Indigenous folks that come into our space that, you know, who we are working to repair connections before we can even get into, what they want to talk about, because there
Mm,
has to be, um, yeah, like a repairing of trusting oneself to come into a space again, to sit down with somebody, right? And so there's a lot of pieces in that too. We get a lot of conversations and disclosures from folks that were, as young people, forced by parents, school, whatever it is, mandated to attend counseling. So that really, really messed them up in terms of like being able to trust people in that really vulnerable way. So there's a lot of repair work that happens too. Cause I'm going to be frank, is, yeah, our industry, our work, it has not been a safe space. 100% of the time. And so, we acknowledge that in our space too. We don't guarantee safe space in our space. If you ever, like our marketing and stuff our language never has safe space. We think about our space being like safe enough where, as humans, we're going to get things wrong. We're going to say things, we probably shouldn't. Experiences might not be what people might think. And so we're really okay with acknowledging that, sitting in that discomfort, really taking accountability when things have shifted and writing that going forward. And so that's something we really talk about and something I'm really proud of because we're humans and we're not going to get everything right. But our industry has created a lot of extra trauma that folks are carrying. So there's a lot of repair work that happens sometimes.
Do you have to sometimes like bring that up? Like the trust,
All with
like
time.
if you don't
Yeah.
trust me,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way that
Yeah.
this can work,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Or I think about trust as being its own entity too. It's like, what does trust need to like be in the space, right? Like what do you think trust needs to continue this work? What does that look like? So we do I guess I do lots of work around that too, of just sort of having trust as its own entity. And we talk about trust as its own sort of relationship. And we work on that from there too. But yeah, I very much will call it out and, acknowledge to the other individual. It sounds like you really had a really distrustful experience and not only being a passive validator, but also like bringing justice to that in terms of like, how can we make this a better experience for you by centering yourself as the expert in the room and not me. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It- like for being like a boxing coach, I have a lot of people come to me
Mm-hmm.
and talk to me and
Mm-hmm.
open up, and sometimes I can tell I'm like pretty blunt. Maybe not
That's
in
probably where we're going to get along just fine.
so like, but I could tell sometimes as I say something,
Mm-hmm.
I can see it that I just killed that. Like,
Mm,
I don't know if trust is the right word because I am being honest,
right.
but I could tell that they're never coming back to tell me something in
Right.
that situation, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'll, like I'll always tell somebody if like that was dumb,
Right.
like
Mm-hmm.
you're not dumb,
Yeah.
but that decision you
Right.
made was dumb, you know? But some people take it like I'm calling them dumb.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the words I use maybe aren't the best always.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't say dumb or stupid or, you know, like that was
Yeah.
stupid. But then they're like, I'm not stupid. I'm like, I never said you're stupid. You made a
Yeah.
stupid decision.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean now I look at you
Mm,
as a stupid person,
right. Yeah.
But it's that trust is interesting.
Yeah.
And then other people will tell me, I talk to you because you're blunt.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because you're like the person in my life that just tells me not you don't like butter it up and make me feel good about it. So it's like it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, we all have our different filtration systems too, right? And we all have parts inside of us that filter somebody's feedback,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not going to jive with everybody,
Yeah.
and I mean, we can still be respectful and kind through that. But yeah, everybody has their own filtration system. And so feedback can filter through at various rates in terms of intensity based on, how those parts were created in those. Again, here we go. Back to those younger years, right?
Right.
Cue the eye roll. Like we're back. We're back.
Do you ever have to tell people like, like I don't think I'm right for you, and
Oh
maybe you
yeah,
should try
for
this
for
person or
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the biggest flexes I think in my life is being close to 40 is like I'm not for everybody,
Mm,
and that's okay.
yeah.
And it's not an easy thing to come up with, but I've worked on this idea that I'm not for everybody. And the ways that I've decided to build my business and what we stand for aren't for everybody as well. And that's okay.
Mhm.
You know, there's lots of other opportunities and places that people can go to seek professional counseling or therapeutic support. And it is okay if it's not me. And I talk with our team a lot about too. And when we're doing like our consults, for instance, is like, there's never any pressure to get the person in the door. Like, if it's not going to be a fit for you, if it's not going to be a fit for them, it is okay to refer out. There's lots of great, you know, organizations and private practices in Saskatoon and area that are doing great work. And
Right.
it is really okay as a professional. I think that could be a huge strength, you know, for people to be like, no, I'm not the right fit. But you know what? This is a place that you might want to consider, or this is a place that you might want to consider. And it's okay to say that. You're honoring yourself, but you're also honoring the other individual as well
Right.
in that way. And yeah, it happens and it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
That's awesome
I'm
that
proud of
you're
that. Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome that you're
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, maybe not a lot, I don't know the numbers, but there's a lot of ego in a lot of
Yeah.
things,
I
you
think
know?
about scarcity mindset a lot. You know, I think about this hustle world that we live in. I mean, you're a business owner, you get it, right? So it's, you know,
Mm,
have more, be more, invest in more, have bigger space, have lots of this, have, you know, and I really think about that a lot. You know, I think the frameworks in which I practice in my own life really reject a lot of those pressures to do it. And so I'm proud of the fact that every time I have to come up with a big decision or, yeah, something within the business is everything is grounded in intention, and it's really rejecting scarcity at all costs. And so I always remind
mm,
people in my team that like there's enough, there's always enough, there's enough work. I mean, this world is a hot garbage can right now, so there is enough, there is enough, right? There is enough work, and we are not it for everybody, and it's really okay. So if it's not a fit, move on.
mm,
Refer them out. We can send them off with kindness and respect and get them connected to somebody that's going to be an even better fit than we can. So that scarcity mindset is something that I'm up against. Trust me. Trust me. It's very easy to get into, you know, the swing of capitalism and buying more and having more and
mm,
bigger space, right? And but you know, actively resisting that is a full-time job in itself. But it helps that I have people around me that I can um, yeah, connect with and kind of bounce ideas and help me get realigned with things when
mm.
the pressures to have more and be more and spend more are coming in. And it's daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, it's like it's cool that you brought that up because it's something that I think about often. Um, and when I had Kendall on, we talked about that as well.
Okay.
Um, like that competitiveness, even between like friends,
Mhm.
everyone thinks you're in competition with them, and I never think that. I
Mhm.
think everyone can win,
Yeah.
even if we all have the same type of business.
Right.
There's
Right.
so many people,
Because there's enough.
and that's what Kendall said. Like it comes from a place of lack.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
you came from a place of like you think you're gonna lose everything
Mhm.
in a second,
Yeah. And that's scary.
and it's
And so you
scary.
hold everything tight. And
Right.
you say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And you do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. So that's cool that you brought that up.
Younger versions of myself, you know, I talk a lot about boundaries, right? So younger version of myself didn't have very good boundaries. I was scared all the time.
Right.
So I said yes to all the things, right? Like all the things, you know, and now I'm very secure in the things that I want to say yes to means that my no's are a little easier.
Right.
Yeah. They're still discomforting, but don't get me wrong. I'm not like this, like people pleasing, you know, I've just like completely recovered from that. No, no, you know, it's still discomforting.
I am perfect.
Yeah. Gosh, progress. We go for, I always say to people, whenever we're doing like presentations, I'm like, we're going for C work, people. C's get degrees. We're just going for C work. We're not going for AA plus work.
Yeah.
That's not what we're about here. We're
Yeah.
on for C work. That
Right.
progress is enough. And you can just sort of see sometimes like melt, like people just melt and be like, oh yeah, that's enough. That's enough. Yeah.
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 That's cool. Do you? Do you work mostly with indigenous people, or is it
It's my caseload would probably slowly growing into that, like, half Indigenous folks, half non. I work with mainly women, adults over, typically over 25, lots of working professionals, women, lots of moms.
mm,
Yeah, lots of moms. Yeah. And like I said, most of the time people find me through my boundary content. And so they come in sort of wanting to talk about boundaries, and then we start peeling apart storylines, and there's so much more underneath that layer. But yeah.
can you think of like a time or a moment or maybe a client you had that like totally changed your perspective on something?
Oh, the one thing I talk about all the time is I delivered a presentation to Bridgepoint Center for Eating Disorders on boundaries. And it was through some really interesting discussion in the, like, after the formal presentation was done, we were engaging in a conversation just over Zoom. And the ways that at the time, I presented this definition or these pieces around boundary, I had this really courageous individual come forward and challenge me on some of the ways that I was talking about boundaries, and talking about how boundaries should always be spoken, and all of these pieces. And it that moment is a pivotal moment in the ways that I have consumed content about boundaries, how I come to live inside of boundaries, and that was one of the highlighted moments of my, like, professional career, I suppose you would say, particularly for facilitating, doing workshops and stuff. It changed the whole trajectory, and it forced me into to looking at content and areas of how people have come to understand boundaries that I'd never went before. It completely changed the way I thought about it, and so I always think about. I mean, do I have a name of that person? Cannot remember. Don't even know what they look like. But I hope that they know that I think about that moment a lot. And anytime I'm doing presentations or facilitating or doing keynotes or anything, I bring that moment up as like a really pivotal moment in terms of, like, when I said, like, who I am, I'm a failure, and that's okay. Like, in that moment, I really failed in that delivery, but that courageous person came in. We had a beautiful discussion and completely shifted, the ways that I talk about it, the ways that I live it, the ways that I share it. So yeah, that'll be forever a moment I'll never forget. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You do seem very open-minded.
Well, I think I have to be,
Yeah.
in the ways that the world has um, shown up in my life, and the things and that I want to do, and the things that I aspire to be, is I have to be open, and I have to be willing to get it wrong,
Mm.
and learn from that, which is not easy. But again, I don't say this often enough. I've said this twice now, is that I'm proud of myself. So thank you. This is
That's
great.
good. Do you find lots of I guess like commonalities between Métis and First Nation?
Mm. Mm. I mean, I guess in the ways that, like, when they come in and share stories,
Right.
or yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there can be lots of, like, identity pieces, right? Lots of rich connection to culture and ceremony too, which is really beautiful. And so the more that I am able to gain a language and understanding, right? Because I don't expect them to teach me about these pieces. So I always gather this information. I go off and I do my own research and stuff. So the more that I'm invested in that, our conversations deepen. And so identity richness, connected to that, wanting to engage in that more, who they are, how they practice, the ceremonies that they do, the cultures that, the cultural pieces that they have either grown up with or reconnecting with as an adult. That's a lot of the conversations too. And so I can obviously very much understand that is, because of whatever circumstance that they've come out, is that reconnecting with their traditions, their ceremonies, their language, is something really beautiful. And so
Mm.
that is a huge commonality in there as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and it's nice um to have somebody who's learning as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
like to get like that's like a nice like you could pretty much say like I'm not perfect, I'm still learning, I'm still
Sure.
growing.
Yeah.
I lost that as well,
Yeah.
and like that's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, and I think self-disclosure in ways too has been something that can be really helpful, right? When it's done in a really good way and an intentional way too. Another commonality I'm thinking is like big laughs and like loud big laughs and family and connection is something too that comes a lot into the room.
Mm,
So sometimes our auntie laughs come in the office and our sound machines can't drown it out too much, but that's healing, right? Is like having a space for auntie laughs too
yeah,
is really important. Yeah.
it's good. Um, yeah, I know, like, wasn't until I moved to Saskatchewan. BC wasn't. I don't know. I don't remember it being like that when I was in BC. But when I moved to Saskatchewan, it was very. Uh, and then I grew up in small towns,
Hmm.
so the small towns saw me as native, but then the native people saw me as white.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just like in like this middle
Yes.
ground
Yeah.
because like I'm brown,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't look white,
Yeah.
but I was raised by my mom,
Mm,
my white side, so I didn't know anything about being native, so it was just like this middle. But I just laughed.
yeah. Yeah.
I just laughed it off. I was like,
For
whatever.
sure. Yeah, and I can 100% relate in that too. I mean, I didn't know my background growing up too, but um even now too, it's people like, "Oh, well, yeah, Ash, you're brown."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, well, yes, I've always been." That makes sense. That makes sense, but it's now in my life that I can connect with that sentence and have some like wonderful conversations. And the more again, the more that I learn about my Métis background and the ancestors that came before me and the matriarchs that came before me and what they did and how they did it, that just strengthens that connection.
Mm.
And I love it. Yeah. Mhm.
Lots of the time now I get Middle Eastern or Spanish
Okay.
because of the beard.
Because of the beard. Oh, there we
Yeah.
go. Oh, people are fun.
Yeah.
People are fun.
But uh we're just over an hour. We've been flying.
Already. Holy. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I usually go for about an hour. But I just wanted to see if there's anything you wanted to touch on. Anything you wanted to chat about,
Oh,
bring up.
you know, I think one of the pieces, so you had Christine on from a Wasps Boutique you had on podcast, and one of the pieces that she really gave to me that maybe I'll give out to anybody listening is that it is okay to, at any point in your life, to reconnect with your roots. For me, I talk a lot about my Métis ancestry. Whomever is listening, whatever that root looks like for you, there's no timeline on that. And I think there's a lot of pressure of if you didn't get it at this age or you weren't invested in ceremony or tradition or customs at this age, we can't do it now. And something I think about lots, and for anybody listening, is that there's never a timeline on that. And your ancestors will always be right with you whenever the moment rises that you want to start reconnecting. And it looks different for everybody, and the pace is different. My pace has been, steady, but still fearful. There's still some Métis events that I've signed up for and haven't gone to because of the fear of, I don't know what I'm walking into. I don't know the language. I don't know the custom here. So there's still things that I'm wrestling with, but it's never too late. And your ancestors will always be there cheering you on, no matter what parts of that you're able to grab at whatever speed that looks like.
Mm, that's awesome.
Hmm.
Well, it was awesome to get to know you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Yes.
finally.
Yes. It's been several months that we've
You've
tried.
been ducking me.
We're here. Yeah.
But no, I can tell that you're amazing. I can tell that you have a big heart, you're very kind, and that you genuinely want to help people.
Mm,
Um, so I'm very, very happy to meet you and to get to know you. And I'm
thank you.
glad that you're in a lot of my close friends' lives.
It's kind of wild, the circle. It's
Yeah.
great. It's just
me.
a reinforcement of the beauty of community,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
And then we can extend it.
Great.
There we go.
Okay. Well, let's call it there.